Hey you guys, how you doing? My name is Caleb, also known as Mr. C. Jessica allowed me to sort of have her platform today to talk a little bit about graffiti, tagging. So I just wanted to give you guys some of my insight and some of my knowledge on graffiti and having fun with it and being able to develop, and that's what you want to do, is develop a style, right? And now there's many of us my age now that are able to show kids like you the style without having to go and do anything that's going to get you in trouble. So let's get into just seeing some of the stuff that I'm going to show you. So what I'm about to show you is some basic, just some basic things to do before you start getting into your writing. A lot of the writing is muscle memory, and it's something that you don't want to think too much about, right? But doing these lines that I'm doing there, and it's just letting your wrist loosen up, right? That's what we want. You want to be loose with it. So just doing some of these things here helps just with your penmanship and so forth. But starting with pencil is always great. I don't know if you can notice there, but I have the pencil tilted because I'm using it sort of like a chisel. It's pretty fun when you practice that way. It's kind of like a little miniature marker, but it's a pencil. So in doing that, it's pretty cool. You could do the alphabets, or you could just practice writing your name or your tag name, your nickname. So these are just some basic techniques that you can start off with. One of the things that I've noticed, I remember when I first started, I would write my name and try to put all kinds of like arrows and here and there. Don't do that same mistake I did. Keep it simple, work on your letters, and trust me, with the pencil, it's best, because once you got the pencil down, you got the technique down, then you can move up to these big old markers like you see here. And developing your writing and developing your style, it takes a while. It takes practice, but it's always best to be able to do it with a thin pencil or a thin marker. And just making sure that your letters are consistent with each other, right? And that they always have like the same, I don't know what, I mean, there's logic to them, right? Like you don't want little letters going on big unless there is some kind of a theme you're trying to do with it. But you don't want to put all these arrows and things all around your word, your name, your nickname, and it's kind of whack, right? Like you can't really read it. Your S kind of looks like a 5. Your E's are looking like backwards 3s. It gets a little confusing. So it's just basically taking care of your letters, finding ways to be consistent with it. So on here, as you can see, this paper here is kind of glossy, and I like using this kind of paper just because a lot of times ink absorbs into regular paper, but with this glossy paper it stays, and you could just see the ink really well. And these markers that I have work better on smooth surfaces. What I'm also doing there is just adding ink. I had my markers kind of been sitting there, so they kind of dry up. I don't fill up the whole thing because I use different colors, and so on the nib, so if I were to fill up the whole marker, I wouldn't be using the ink, so all I only really use is the nib. So because I want to get certain colors, so for instance there's blue, but I like to mix it up where I have maybe red on the side and there'll be some blue in the middle, or black on the outside, turquoise in the middle. I've done so many different colors, and you can only write certain amount of letters before all the color starts blending in, so it has to be pretty fast. Funny story, it was my mom who gave me the idea of the multiple colors. One day I was refilling my marker, and she walked by my room, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I told her I'm filling up my markers. And she said, "Have you ever thought about putting multiple colors, like on the top, so when you write, like comes out sort of like a rainbow?" I was like, "What?" I was like, "Hey!" And so I went and bought a whole bunch of marker lots, because back then it was hard to come by with inks other than Pilot ink, and Pilot ink only has 4 different colors. And so I went out and got a whole bunch of marker lots, and marker lot has a whole bunch of different colors. And boy, I would shake those things out, all the inks, and then I would start using it at the top. And whenever I would write, especially on glass, I mean, it would come out pretty nice. And so that was one of the things that I was known for growing up. So just wanted to share that. And a lot of it in graffiti is everything is fast. You have to write fast, and that's the cool thing. Now that I'm older, that I was able to sort of master being able to write with fat markers, like sort of calligraphy with a twist, right? A lot of times at least when I think of calligraphy, I sort of think of like, those special certificates that people get. But this is sort of street, right? It's sort of raw. It's calligraphy, but it has different twists to it. Which is unique, because I never saw it that way, but I got to find out that it is. It's somewhat similar to calligraphy, and I don't know, it's pretty cool. But I've never gotten to this point if it wasn't for me learning the basics with just regular pencil or pen. Here I'm having a little fun with both my left and my right. I like mimicking my right-handers, because I always like the way they hold their markers and the way their letters come out. If you slow down this video and you see how I'm holding the marker on my left hand, is way different how right-handers would hold it. So I was able to just sort of flow with both, and I came up with this style with both hands, and it's pretty good. It's something that I want to continue doing as far as my right hand skills. It's just pretty cool whenever I toss that left marker onto my right and start flowing. It's pretty cool. But it's crazy because I can't write with a pen or a pencil for the life of me. But go ahead and give me a marker and I can flow with it. All right, thanks guys. When I was young, I was a product of being bullied. And I remember having a bad day, and I was next to my fellow classmate, and I saw him just tagging. And I said, "Hey, that's pretty cool. What are you doing there?" And he said, "Oh, I'm a tagger, and so I'm just making some characters." And I was like, "That's pretty cool." I was like, "I want to learn how to write like that." And he said, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah." And so he gave me his alphabet. He gave me just basic alphabet. And then he said, "Here, now just create your style." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I went home and thought of a name for myself, and I just started writing on paper. And it wasn't until a little time later that I had a friend of mine who came and got us to go tag on a bus stop. And that was my first time tagging. But I took it on forever. Like I never stopped, right? I just the style of lettering, and as you can see right now, I'm writing just because, I don't know, maybe because I'm nervous or whatever it is, but it's this thing of just me writing. And that's why I used to keep a journal. I haven't in a while, but I used to just like keeping a journal just to see my letters flow and being able to just write people's names or just anything that will pop in my mind just to better my style. And little did I know what I was doing, it was creating a muscle memory, right? And that is why later on I'm going to show you just some small techniques that you can do just to loosen up your wrist, being able to just sort of flow. And there's certain things that you can do that'll help you, especially if you're somebody with bad penmanship. Sometimes there's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the things that I found in my penmanship getting better, it was just keep doing repetitive writing and so forth. And once you get a certain control to your hand, you're able to sort of control what you write, right? So, but developing certain things that'll help you was something that I didn't learn until later on, right? Because graffiti is very raw, very spot on the moment. It's something that you don't think too much about, right? You have a name, you want the world to see it, so you want to put it up, and you want it to be stylish, you want it to be big, right? Same way with Macy's, Starbucks, and Toyota, and all these other companies, right? You're driving down the road, and what do you see? These big old billboards, because they want to be known, they want to be seen, and they want you to spend their money on them, right? Well, same here. My tag name was Tier, right? And so I wanted people to know Tier. I wanted people to see Tier. Some people would meet me and they would say, "Oh, you're Tier? Like, I thought you were taller," or, "I thought you were this way or that way." It's sort of like this persona that you build, and I don't know. I mean, it's something that I've definitely had fun with it, but it has its pros and cons, right? The cons to it that it's illegal. I mean, back in the day, if you get caught and you're under 18, you would go to court, and then most likely you would have to go and clean some buses. Well, it's not like that anymore. You get caught, and depending if you're somebody that's out there doing it and they have pictures of your tags elsewhere, you could get a fine. And I think the minimum in California is $1,000, and you don't want to be that guy going to jail and people ask you, "Hey, what are you in for?" And you want to say graffiti. It's just, now a lot of folks are getting paid for it. People are just always lining up to have some kind of graffiti artwork on their buildings, even on cars. I know a couple riders who are doing things with like BMW, and they're doing like certain graffiti paintings on certain cars. And I mean, these are big time companies, right? But for me is the memory of just the rawness of graffiti. There's different types of folks, right? There's graffiti taggers, vandals, and that's what I was. And there you have your graffiti artists, right? And there's a lot of them who have the style, they're able to create beautiful artwork. But a lot of it was definitely like on paper and something that they just have and developed on their own. But the rawness of it is when you hit the streets, right? When a lot of the style comes from definitely not wanting to get caught, right? So everything that you do, you want to do it fast because you don't want to get caught. And so when you do it fast, but you're able to put something up that catches the people's eyes and attention, that's the cool part, right? So whether it's letterings, even if it's just a regular tag name, but the lettering, the style, the flow to it, it just puts your attention to it, right? Or if it's just a fill-in, bubble letters, what we call throw-ups. It's just basically a bubble letter. You fill it in and you outline it with a darker color. And then you have your pieces. Those are more, I guess, more intricate, more a little harder to do, just simply because there's a lot of lines and how to structure your letters and all that. But and then of course, I mean, you have your murals, so there's different levels of it. And you know what? it's something that's tapped in from a long time ago, right? You hear about the caveman, right? Like they had their arts inside of caves. You have your hieroglyphics, right? And the Egyptians with their drawings, and that's how they communicated. It wasn't letters, right? It was pictures, it was drawings, and that's how they communicated. And mind you, these things were done by the highest, right? And you look at their artwork, it's just amazing. And so that's kind of like the same thing graffiti is, right? It's the same thing. It's telling a story, whether it's well, in this case it's letters, but people always throwing their characters and so forth, and it's just having fun with it, right? But definitely not to the point where you're committing a crime, you're tagging on people's properties, you're tagging on people's cars. You know, that was something that we always respected growing up. One of the things we tagged on definitely was like Muni, right, buses, because we wanted to get our names out. But if we saw a house that was nicely painted, or even a business that was nicely painted, we wouldn't mess with it, because we can tell that whoever was there was taking care of their facility. Now, other places that were ran down, already tagged on, broken windows, well, that was our canvas, and we would try to beautify it by putting our artwork on there, right? Our letters, our artwork, you know, and then also, if there was a building, a nice building that got tagged on or vandalized, maybe something that's going on there, right? Like with the landlord or something, and that's a form of saying, hey, we don't like what you're doing. And so those are things that happen when certain communities are targeting people of like low income, right, or lower class folks. And you know, you hear about landlords just kicking people out or things like that. And sometimes through graffiti is a form of saying, hey, here we are, we don't like what you're doing. But other than that, respect in the community as far as taking care of the community and not vandalizing it, is something big growing up, in respect, and it's also a big thing within the community of graffiti. It's something that you just don't go out and do, you know, and it's like anything, right? If you tell on somebody to the police because they did something to you, whether you retaliate on Instagram or whatever, right? A lot of times those are personal beefs and things like that, but it's not just because there's a couple of kids that's just going and tagging. You have that sometimes, but those are the ones that get checked, right? But the older guys, and they say, hey man, that's not cool. You don't do that. Well, you guys, we're concluding with the video, and I really appreciate you guys just tuning in, giving me the opportunity to sort of share some of my graffiti stuff with you guys, and yeah.
It's still recording, just pick up when you're ready.
Do I do that?
If you want to.
Okay.
You don't have to.
All right. Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to hear me out a little bit about just my experience with the graffiti and so forth. And if this is something that you want to pick up for yourself, be safe with it. Don't get into no trouble. Definitely, this is just a form of writing, a form of expression, in a way that would definitely, if it's something that you're interested in, you would definitely get some head turns and people giving you like good props on what you're doing, and because that's something that I've experienced, especially now more as an adult than as a kid, right? As a kid, I was just a vandal, I was a criminal, but now as an adult that I've been able to perfect it, I'm an artist, and people really dig it. So that's something really what I want you to take out of this, is to have fun with it, with your lettering, with your writing, with your coloring, and it's just an outlet for you to have. And so really thank you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Once again, my name is Caleb, but I'm also known as Mr. C. Really good to see you guys tuning in, and please subscribe, follow, let your friends know. You guys take care.